So good afternoon. So today, for tips and tricks, we're going to talk about Dynamics SL settings with Excel statements. And as always, if you have a question, unmute yourself and interrupt me, and then I'll take any kinds of questions at the end of the demo as well. So previous Wednesdays, our first one, I covered too much, and I'll probably cover some of this again in other sessions. And then the other previous Wednesdays, we've covered quite a bit. And last week we did statistical ledgers, and recordings of these are on our Excel Statements YouTube channel. So today, Dynamics SL settings with Excel Statements. So basically talking about what your settings options are within Dynamics SL and how those may affect or make Excel statements more effective. And I should have mentioned on the slide here, if you're unsure of any of these, consult with your Dynamics SL partner / consultant before making some of these changes, because you could be changing something that perhaps shouldn't be changed in your system, and if you don't understand it as well as they do, they could perhaps give you a caveat against making a change that we're going to discuss here. So GL setup screen. All of your setup screens, or virtually all of your setup screens, have retention areas for how much history to retain. And in general, with a reporting system like Excel Statements, I like to say the more the better. The further back you can see your transaction history, the better it is for reporting purposes. Obviously, if you say, well, we never, ever look back more than 4 years for any reason whatsoever, then sure, go set it at 4 years, or 48 periods. And something to know about that may not be real clear is it's not going to go and do detail removal unless you tell it to. So it doesn't do it automatically. And so there are two places you can tell it to go and call off that detail. One is when you're closing a period or year, there's a little checkbox to the right, and that's unchecked by default. And if you check that, then it will use the retention rules and attempt to delete detail. And something you should know, if you don't check that box, closing is very fast in Dynamics SL. And it's only doing two things. It's moving the period forward in your setup tables, and it's moving forward in the history table. So closing is doing very little in Dynamics SL. But if you have a lot of historic detail and you check that box for delete detail, then closing may take minutes or maybe even hours, depending on your system. So if closing takes a long time and you're checking that box, just be aware that if you don't check that box, closing would be very fast. So the other way to delete the detail is most of the modules, well, any modules that has retention settings also has a process screen for going in and running that at any point. And those screens, when you run them, the period numbers in there for what period to start deleting detail, those are going to be read-only because it's getting that information from your setup screen. So, like GL. So in GL Ledger, there's another option there about when reversing entries get created, reversing batches get created, and those would be obviously in the next period. And it used to be, I'm probably dating myself, but a long time ago, there was no option there. When you created a reversing batch, no batch would get created until you close into the period. so you close into the next period. That's when, during the closing process, is when it creates any batches that are out there for the next period. And I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago, they gave you an option there for generate when releasing. And I definitely recommend that because XLstatements lets you see those. And if you generate those when you release your batch, if you generate your reversing batch at the same time, that reversing batch will be out there in that future period, and XLstatements will be able to see that if you use the include unposted argument. You set that to true in your balance function. That's the first optional parameter. So if you make that true, then you'll be able to look at a period even though you haven't closed into it. It's not even, hasn't been opened yet. You'll be able to see those numbers out there. And that's true of any batch you make in any transaction screen. But in the setup screen for reversing, automatic reversing batches, those won't be there unless you use the option to create those when you save your original batch. So account classes, I'm off the setup screen now, and I know we've talked about this before, but I really like the idea about setting up account classes in GL, and I'm going to touch on all these screens in the demo as well. It didn't make sense to me to give you a lot of screenshots here since we're going to be in Dynamics SL later anyway. So account classes, those have been in Dynamics SL for a long time, but Dynamics SL never actually uses them for anything. They're not in any reports or anything like that. And so you set up account classes, they have their own maintenance screen, and then you go in your chart of accounts and you put each account in the correct account class that you created. And then in XLstatements, you can use the account classes instead of account numbers for your summary reports, and that will automatically drive those. And you go create a new account. As long as you put it in the right account class, it's going to be on your XLstatements report in the correct place. Another nice thing about account classes is they have descriptions as well, and there's an XLstatements function for pulling those descriptions in. And so all of your summary row descriptions will be there as well from that table. And obviously, if you go and you maintain that table, give something a slightly different description, then all your XLstatements report will have that as well. So it's not like, hard coding or typing in your summary descriptions on one of those reports. You go and change that in one report, it's not going to change any other summary reports that you may have made. But if you're using account classes instead, then that change will go across all the reports where you've used account classes. And I like these better than using Subaccount for consolidating across different databases, which may have different charts of accounts. But obviously, if you're using them for summary reporting, you can't necessarily also use them for consolidation. But certainly, you can use it for both. And if you're really structured and organized, that would work well. So you use your account classes as well to drive consolidated reports, which are typically be summary reports, particularly if you have dissimilar charts of accounts in the different databases. You're obviously going to have to, meld those together somehow, and this is a good way to do that. And a Subaccount is there for that, and I think that's the next screen. But I like these better because they've got the descriptions with them, and to my mind, they're more straightforward and kind of self-documenting. And if you use them for consolidating across databases, just make sure they're in sync because they don't, when you create account classes, you're only creating it for the database you're in. And so you would need to create obviously exactly the same account class IDs in the other database in order to use them for consolidation. It's not to say that you can't have an account class in one database and not in another. That's fine. And in fact, XLstatements will tell you on the insert from SL, if you go to the consolidation tab on that screen, it'll actually tell you what databases each account class is being used in. and it'll do the same for consolidation accounts and consolidation subaccounts as well. And so the way you use those, and I think most of you has probably seen this, the third optional argument of C, it's saying, oh, for the account argument, the account, what we're using for the account parameter argument, use account class as opposed to account. And so you'd put a C in for that third optional parameter. And D means, yeah, use account classes, but use consolidation subaccounts. So we have to give you those combinations. And then to insert your account classes from the insert from SL screen on the consolidation tab, just on the top, say insert as a list. Typically it's going to be a column, and then click insert next to account classes, and it'll insert those down just like you would insert your chart of accounts. So ratio group is in there as well. That's a hard-coded list in Dynamics SL, and again, Dynamics SL doesn't use that for anything, but you could create a ratio report for doing ratio analysis like a bank would for judging your credit worthiness by using that. And XLstatements has that as well, so it can see ratio groups that you've assigned to accounts. And again, this is all in the chart of accounts maintenance screen. And then consol account, which I already talked about a little bit. And so you have to think of that as a 10-character free field, and that can be any uppercase letter or any number in there, and I think some other characters as well. So don't think of it necessarily as an account, but you could put a word in there, cur assets or something like that, and that's perfectly acceptable, and would again make your consolidated using that in a report probably make that a little more useful. And by default, Dynamics SL, when you create an account, it puts the account number in as a consol account. It just does that automatically, but that certainly doesn't need to stay. And things like account classes and consol accounts, that's what we call a many-to-one relationship. So you can have many accounts in the same account class, and you can have many accounts in the same consol account as well. So it's very useful, again, for consolidation, or either of these are useful for consolidation because it'll automatically roll up, account detail that you may have in one subsidiary that you might not have in other subsidiaries, and or you don't really want to see at your consolidation level. So roll those up for when they appear in your consolidation reports, and these will automatically do that for you. And then to use the consol account, that's an A for that third optional argument, or B if you're going to use that with consol subaccount. So B means for my account argument, we're giving it the consol account, and for the subaccount, we're giving it the consol subaccount. And like I mentioned, there are no descriptions with those, so if you do use these, you're going to have to type in your own descriptions. And again, using these for consolidation, you're sort of creating a dummy parent chart of accounts. And I don't know, for those of you that may have used this Dynamics SL back when it was called Solomon, and in particular when it was the DOS product called Solomon 3, your only choice in consolidation was to create a dummy parent company, and then there's a process for exporting and importing from different databases into that. But you don't actually have to create a company to use it with XLstatements, but you can certainly come up with a chart of accounts that you say, oh, this is our parent company chart of accounts, and then that's what you use in the consol account for the other charts. And then when you drop the consol accounts in from XLstatements, that's going to be that chart that you designed for the parent company. Whether you want to do that or not, I guess it depends on how much of a CPA type you are, where you really want to see it as a chart of accounts. But I recommend, it doesn't have to be numbers. It can be words or something like that as well. And again, just like the account classes, you have to keep that in sync manually. So you have to make sure that you're using exactly the same codes across your databases. And I don't have console subaccount in here. Console sub is something that works the same way. And again, if you have multiple databases, one reason to have companies in different databases is because you've got very different subaccount structures. So one, you may need 2 segments, another, maybe you only need 1 segment, and that's fine if they're in different databases. But when you're consolidating, and let's say in your consolidated chart of accounts, you want to be able to have a drop down to look at expenses for each department. And there's no way to equate that if the subaccount structures are completely different between the 2 companies. And so that's when you use consol sub. And consol sub is a 24-character free field. So, accounts are limited to 10 characters. Subaccounts are limited to 24 characters, not including the separators. And so that's why that's a 24-character field. And it does not have separator segmentation capability. But there's a case where, yeah, you can use letters in there and just put the department name in, and then in your subaccount maintenance screen, have each one of those subaccounts. So maybe it has 3 segments, but you always want it to combine into the maintenance department. So create or just use a consol subaccount called maintenance. And you don't actually create these; they don't have a maintenance screen. You just type that in on the subaccount maintenance screen. You type that in, and that's going to be its consol sub. And so you might have 20 subaccounts because you've got 2 other segments you're also using, so they're all maintenance department, but maybe they're different locations or divisions or something like that. But you would have those all go into that consol sub that is the only, it's as deep as you want to go when you're consolidating your companies. So yeah, so I left that out. So posting options in the chart of accounts. Oh, maybe I did it. Yeah, there, I did it later because I'm trying to stick with accounts here. On the chart of accounts maintenance screen, posting options. So there's an option there that I think a lot of people don't know about. So you can tell it account by account to summarize all but GL transactions. So if you're unaware, each module or most modules, and certainly AR, AP, Cash Manager, there's an option on those setup screens for each module that'll let you post to the GL in summary. And what that means is when you do a batch, so let's say you're doing an AP voucher batch and you release that, and it's the release step that populates your general ledger. They'll just, unless you post them, they're going to be in your general ledger, but they're going to be flagged as unposted. And that's why, we have that parameter for include unposted that I already mentioned, but they're going to be in your general ledger. So it's the release step. That's your control step. Posting is not a control step in Dynamics SL. If you want to catch a mistake before it gets into the system, you better catch it before the batch is released. So when it's released and you have that module, so let's say we've got AP set to post in summary, and we've got a big voucher batch, and so that's going to hit, 30 different expense accounts, for vouchers from 4 different vendors that are all distributed across different expense accounts. And when that's posted, if you have post in summary, then if you've used the same expense account on multiple vouchers, all of that will automatically be combined into one line in your general ledger. And then also your accounts payable, your accrual account hits, for every one of those vouchers, it's going to hit the AP account. all those will be summarized as well. And this option called Summarize All but GL, that kind of gives you the best of both worlds, because you set AP to post in detail, but you say, oh, for my accrual accounts, for my accounts payable account, and my accounts receivable account or accounts, let's have those summarized. And you would also typically do this for your cash accounts. And so what that will do is all of that, when you release that batch from AP, but now you're releasing in detail, which is what I recommend with Excel statements, all of the expense detail will be there. So you've hit the same expense account, sub-account on two different vouchers for two different vendors, but rather than it rolling those up, they're going to be in there as separate lines with their vouchers associated. But since we've said, oh, my accrual account, let's summarize that, you're only going to have one row in general ledger, one line in general ledger for that entire batch, which to my mind is perfectly acceptable. And if you need to see that detail, as you know, you can just drill down another level, and then you're going to see those individually in each batch. You're going to see, in this case, that credit to the AP account from every batch. But at the GL level, your second drill down level, you're only going to see one row in there per batch. So like I say, I consider that to be the best of both worlds. And if you post or if you release any module in summary, you're going to lose all detail in that GL drill down, that second level drill down in Excel statements. So you're not going to see, if you're using the project series, you're not going to see the project and the task. You're not going to see external reference number. You're not going to see, if an AP batch, you're not going to see the vendor ID and vendor name. You have to be posting in detail to see that at the general ledger. And I know some of you may say, but when I look at the detail general ledger report in Dynamics SL, I can see that. Well, what you're seeing in there may well be wrong, and in any case, it's going to be confusing because it just arbitrarily takes the first value that it sees in the batch and slaps that detail on that summarized row. So as accountants, we think that's a lot worse than what we show you as an asterisk. So we automatically put an asterisk in on any of those summarized general ledger rows because we'd rather say we don't know than give you the wrong information, which is what you would often get if you're counting on what's in the actual table in Dynamics SL. In other words, what you see in that Dynamics SL report. So by doing this, you're decluttering the GL, which is the whole reason why people turn that summary on anyway. And then, as I mentioned, if you want the detail, for that accrual account or that cash account, then you can just drill down to the batch level. And so if you're attempting to troubleshoot some issue, you've always got that last level, which is much better for auditing and trying to troubleshoot an issue like that. So sub-account maintenance screen. So now we're off the account maintenance screen. So I already talked about this because I didn't realize I had a slide out here. And so again, keep in sync manually. It's not going to put separators in, like you're used to seeing if you have segmented sub-accounts. It's never going to put those in for you because again, these can go across different databases, which may have completely different segmentation. And I find these are very useful in consolidating across databases where you have different sub-accounts or different sub-account structures in those databases. And then it's optional. That third consol argument would be S for using consol sub-account, or C if you're using them with the account classes, D if you're using them with consol sub-accounts, consol accounts, and then H if you're using them with ratio groups, which I don't think would ever happen. Okay, so setup screens, I already talked about this. We definitely recommend posting in detail. And some people say, oh, I want to post in summary because I don't want my general ledger to get so large. That really doesn't matter how big it is. It's not going to affect, certainly not going to affect the speed of Excel statements. In a relational database like SQL Server, reports and screens and certainly reporting products like XLstatements use the indexes. And if you've got 1 million rows and you've got 100,000 rows, it's using an index. And so even though you have 10 times the number of rows, that might mean, oh, performance has slowed down 2%. So don't consider, oh, things are going to slow down if we keep all this detail. And the same with retention. It doesn't really slow down the important parts of the system. So, oh, look, I came to retention. So the same thing there. So you've also got transaction description in AP and AR, and the default is that it puts in AP, it'll put the vendor ID and then the first 20 characters of the vendor name, and in AR, the customer ID and then the first 20 characters of the customer name. And I think with Excel statements, when you drill down, when you can see something at that level, which should be the second drill down level, if you're releasing, I think in the screens they call it post in detail, but it's actually releasing in detail. If you're doing that, you can see that anyway. There's no reason to waste that transaction description field on your screen on that, because it's already there. It's redundant, and you're taking away something that could be very useful to you. And so we recommend turning that off and say user what do they call it? User entered description. So that's one of the choices there. And that gives you a 30-character free field to actually have some kind of useful information coming up to your GL. And therefore, when you're drilling down in Excel statements for that particular transaction. So, if you're buying, a new printer, you can actually use those 30 characters to say, brother laser printer. And then in that expense account, as you're drilling down in Excel statements, that's what you're going to see for transaction description. You're not wasting it on something that you can already see in Excel statements. And, you figure out what you would like to see there, and then obviously train your data entry people to put that kind of information in. And if any of you are using order management, unfortunately, order management is hard-coded for what it brings up into AR. It brings up that default first, the 10 character of the customer ID, and then 20 characters of the customer name. And that's because the people who wrote that out in Orange County, California, weren't in Finlay, working with the actual Solomon programmers, and they thought that's what should come up because that's what is there by default, and that's what's there in, the demo databases that they got. And I told them about that before the product release, but it was too late at that point. So Payroll. So I don't know if anyone out there uses Dynamics SL Payroll, but that, again, we'd want to post in detail. And then there's some special settings in there about whether the employee ID gets set up to GL. And, you can say, oh, we don't really want that visible. So even if that's the case, I'd recommend enabling sending that up. And Excel statements, even if you are not using modular security, it will require any Excel statements user to have view rights to the PR transaction report before it's going to show you that ID and also then the employee name. So this is a case where we're stepping in, even if you haven't turned modular security on, and require the Excel statements user to have a corresponding Dynamics SL user ID that you have given view rights to that particular report, okay? And there are only a couple other cases like that. One of them that I neglected to mention when we went over budgeting is that upload ledger button to actually send your budget information into Dynamics SL. That won't be enabled unless you have delete rights to the budget maintenance screen. So you can be, if you're in the administrators group, then you're going to have that automatically. But if you're not associated with a Dynamics SL user who has that right, so maybe you're not using Windows authentication with Dynamics SL, and you haven't gone in XLstatements and linked users, this is a case where at least that one user who's going to need to use that button, you're going to have to link their Windows account into their corresponding Dynamics SL user ID. And then the third case that I always forget about is if you're doing add columns. So you're doing add columns and you're an XLstatements administrator, you won't be able to add columns for everybody unless you have rights to customization mode. Because typically when you're working with added columns, it's because somebody has used customized mode. And so we don't let someone do that unless they also have rights to customize the system. So Cache Manager setup, much like the other screens we talked about, that generate GL detail transactions, you can decide on that on your own. It doesn't make that much difference to XLstatements. But something you should know in Cache Manager, you've got those entry types, and you can create your own entry types. And something you need to know is those entry types will show up as you're drilling down. If you drill down to a Cache Manager batch, it's going to show you the entry type and then the description that you've created for that entry type as well, which can be kind of nice for identifying what those transactions are in a Cache Manager batch. Those are your cache account transactions. So shared information, this is real important, certainly to XLstatements, particularly with respect to subaccounts. Something you should know, though, is subaccounts aren't the only ID that you can segment. So if you go into Flex Key Definition, you can also segment something like a vendor ID or a customer ID or an inventory ID, where I think it's very useful with inventory IDs very often. So you can do that as well. And so you segment those, and then suddenly all your screens and reports will show those IDs segmented, just like you see your subaccounts now. So a lot of people aren't aware of that, but you can do that. So if you have, if you have some naming convention for vendors where the first two characters, denote something, you can go in and explicitly say, yeah, that first two segments, and that's what they denote, and validate them against this table of all of the possible choices for those first two cables. You can turn all of that on. And in XLstatements, if you do that, those IDs, when they show up on your drill down sheets, those will all be segmented as well. So that's kind of nice. So separators, when XLstatements is first installed, there is a script that gets run in SQL Server, and that will find problems with separators. And the typical problems are someone has used, the defaults are dash, and 99.9% of sites just leave it as a dash. That makes sense, right? But if you go in and just being tricky, you use an underline rather than the dash, or you use an asterisk or something like that, that XLstatements isn't going to allow that. And when that script is run, when you're installing XLstatements, it's going to error out on that and tell you why. And the real reason is because we allow masks in XLstatements, and so it has to be able to figure out what's part of a mask and what's part of and what's a segment. And so you can't use a character that could be used for a mask or something like that as a subaccount segmenter. Yeah, and like I said, just keep the default dashes. You can also set different segments. So you could have the first two segments separated by a dash, and the next two segments separated by a slash, something like that. You can do that. I've never seen anyone do it, but Dynamics SL lets you do that. Project series does not. So your separator for projects or tasks, you just say, this is my separator, and that's automatically going to be the separator between all of your segments. So this is what that screen looks like. And so let's see. Yeah, valid combo is required. So here's where you're telling the number of segments. It's going to then set up a row down here for each one of those segments. How long is that? What is the alignment? What is the fill character? What is the edit type? Can they only be numbers, or can they be alphabetic characters and numbers? None of this really matters to XLstatements. Here's the separator I was talking about. So you can tell, like I said, a dash here and a slash here and a bar here or whatever. I just, that certainly I don't think helps the readability of your screens or reports. And I would just stick with the default dashes on here. Then you're never going to have a problem with XLstatements as well. So valid combos required. So what this means, and I would expect most sites have this checked. Most consultants are going to recommend this if you're using, again, multiple segments. This basically means when you go create a new subaccount in the subaccount's maintenance screen, then you're going to have to have, let's see, how do I put this? You're going to have a valid, well, what it means is you can't create a subaccount on the fly. And if you turn this box off, and let's say you've got 3 segments in your subaccount, when you go in to enter a subaccount and you hit F3, it's first going to ask you, oh, what do you want for the first segment? And then it's going to ask you, separate screen, what do you want for the second segment? And then it's going to ask you, what do you want for the third segment? And so that's what this checkbox is controlling. And most sites don't set up that way. I know some investment firms do, because they may be adding like a new investment instrument or a new registered rep on the fly. And so they actually turn this off. But that to my mind is very unusual to have that off. And those firms, that's why we have the expand subaccount segment option in XLstatements, because that'll come out and automatically describe them. And they can also go in and by choosing those, they're creating a subaccount on the fly that way. And that's why this is what it's called. So this is basically saying you don't have to use a subaccount that's been defined in the subaccount's maintenance screen. You can create it on the fly by putting it in with the transaction. And these validates over here, and typically these would be checked, at least that's what I recommend. That means when you're creating a new subaccount, even if you're creating one on the fly, then you're going to use the Flexkey maintenance table with a list of the valid, in this case, reporting units. And you're creating a subaccount. If this is on validate, you're not going to be able to put in any 2 characters there. You're going to have to put 2 characters in that have been put in as a valid reporting unit. And that's going to be on the next screen that I'm going to show you. And that, again, would be true for all of these. And obviously, you can mix and match. So you could make one of these not validated and all the other ones validated. And then when you create a subaccount, you could choose something on the fly for that. And this is the screen I was talking about, the Flexkey table maintenance screen, and we'll see that. And you can also use this, like I said, if you segment something like your vendor ID or inventory ID, you can use Flexkey tables with those as well. So, if you've got some naming convention for inventory IDs where the first 4 characters denote something, a product line or something like that, you can create those product lines in your Flexkey table for the first segment of inventory ID. And then when someone goes to create a new inventory ID, they'll if you have validate turned on, they'll have to choose one of those. So subaccounts, strongly recommend that you use Flexkey tables with these. And it's completely optional whether you use Flexkey table maintenance at all. If you use if you choose to validate a segment, if you turn this on, then you're going to have to go in and put valid IDs in the table for those. But if you're using these in Dynamics SL, if you turn all of this on, then that's all visible and kind of internally documenting within Excel statements when you're using, insert from SL or creating dropdowns and the like. Okay, so version 3 still scheduled for next month. On today's topic, GL setup. One of the tabs in GL setup is your period ending dates. And if you're not using monthly accounting periods, you may know you have to go in and, let's say you're using 13 4-week periods, you have to go in the start of every year and put the period end dates in there. And in version 3, it will retain all those period ending dates for you. So on your report, if you say same period last year, it'll know the period ending date and of that period. So if you do period end, period 13 for 2018, that's going to be a different date than period end for period 13 of 2019. And Excel statements will actually retain that and let you maintain those in version 3. Shared information. Oh yeah, in later versions of Dynamics SL, in the shared information module, there's something called field description maintenance, where you can go in and give other names to existing columns in Dynamics SL, and those will be used in version 3 if you're using filters or adding columns. Those are going to be used for the column header, unless you override it on your drill down sheets. Okay, and then of course we're going to have a project option in version 3, and that's going to have a whole mess of setup for those modules that it will touch on. And so these are some of the ideas we have for future Wednesdays. And again, if you have an idea that you'd like to see, email me, let me know, or jump in and let me know, and we can put that on the list as well. So I told you this is going to take a long time, so I used 40 minutes already. And you know me, I always like to start from nothing in here, if for no other reason, just to enforce, how easy this is to go in and start a new report. And let's do a drill down list on locations. Okay, I'm going to insert that as a drop down list, not drill down list, drop down list. And I'll go and insert my chart for that company. Okay, so the drop down list, when you create a drop down list for anything, for companies, ledgers, whatever, the first time you create one, it creates a sheet called structures, and that's where the drop down list is coming. And so, you can see these are the masks used, and we're only using this one segment. So for all the other segments, we have question marks. And so these location names, those are coming from, oops. Your shared information flex key tables. So we're talking the subaccount, and 1, 2, 3. That's the third segment. So that's where those are coming from. Okay, and you notice we have quite a few in here, and many fewer showing up over here. That's because in Excel statements, I had the include inactive unchecked, which is kind of normal, right? So if I turn that on and I say, yeah, third segment, insert as a drop-down list, you want to replace that? Yes. And now, hey, I'm wrong. I think in version 3 anyway, it would have all of them, but it would have the ones that have never been used. It's going to have those unchecked in here. And I thought that worked in version 2.5, but apparently not. In version 3, that's the way it works. That's the way most of these work. if you say include inactive and you say drop in the account classes, this is what I was talking about. So let's drop those in as a column because we're going to use those. If I say include inactive, you notice, and let's say we're doing consolidation. So we're going to choose more than one database here. And so over here, this is showing us what database those are used in. So this last one, that's used only in companies in that other database. But if I say include inactive here, and I insert those, let's go insert it here. Then, what did I do wrong? Oh, I must have selected that. Let's see, let's go select them all and insert. There we go. So now we're, see CO, cost of goods sold is there, and that's not actually used. That account class hasn't been assigned to any accounts in any databases. But because I have include inactive checked, it's going to put that on my report as well. So if you're designing these ahead of time and maybe you haven't done all your work, or you've got some other accounts to add, they're going to be in one of these, turning that on will then include those as well. And if I turn that off and go in and insert, then we're only going to see the ones that are in use, that have actually had accounts assigned to them in any of the databases. This is the database over here. So these two are in this database 10, and these are in database 60. Where was I? Let's go get rid of this. Well, yeah, I wanted to show you that anyway. So that's again using the account classes. So we'll go back to general ledger here. Chart of accounts maintenance. And so there are your classes there. And you see I inserted a couple test accounts, and I didn't assign those to classes. And generally, you're going to want to, if you're using account classes, you're going to want every account in a class. And here's your account class maintenance screen. So this is where you go create those, and then you can put these descriptions in. And as you saw, the description comes in, and this is an Excel statement function for account class description. And this is the company, and then this is the, it's pointing then to the account class ID or account class code. So that's what those are. And then we talked about console account, which is over here, right here. And you see I went in, and by default, it's going to have the account number when you create an account. But I went in and said, oh, yeah, let's give these the console account of cash for all of these. Let's give this a console account of AR. So you've got 10 characters in here, so use them if you're going to be using this. And then the same with your subaccount maintenance. But this is the posting option I was talking about. So these are cash accounts. So I've told it, yeah, summarize all but GL, and then post these in detail. So, this one AR account. And so for my cash accounts, yeah, I'm going to say summarize all but GL. And what the all but GL means is it's not going to roll up. It's not going to summarize any transactions for batches you create in your general journal. So your that you create in the general ledger module. It's never going to summarize those. In any case, there is no option to post in detail from GL either, because you're in the general ledger already. So it's not going to roll those up for you. So that's what that means. And so, like I said, you've got these two choices. And so I really like that choice, particularly, again, when you're using Excel statements for your reporting, your GL reporting. This can give you, like I said, the best of both worlds. And then we talked about sub-accounts, maintenance. So you've got that console sub. And the neat thing about this is, because sub-accounts are 24 characters, you've got 24 characters here as well. And you can see this also just defaults to each one, and it doesn't have separators. But you got 24 characters, uppercase characters in here. So you can, like I said, you can make these something very meaningful if you know how to spell or know how to type, to see when you're consolidating across databases. And 24 characters, that's a lot. Most of the description fields in Dynamics SL are only 30 characters, so not actually going to save that. And okay, so let's do equals YTD bal, Control Shift A. So this account, whoops, I hit F5, F4, fiscal year period we don't have yet. But let's just leave off our optional ones for now as well. We're getting an error because it can't find fiscal year and period. And again, this is the name box. So I'm giving my selected range, which is one cell, I'm giving that a name here. Okay, period 11, and we'll copy that down. And let's do a PTD bal. And rather than starting that way, I could just go in here and do this too. Right? So I don't have to go in and, start over for my PTD bal in that case. Let's go and delete these. Oops. And this one. And obviously, obviously to me, I've got automatic calculation turned on. And if you weren't in that session or didn't watch that video, that's why it's slow when I do something like deleting a column. And when I'm creating a report, I would typically actually turn this on manual, in which case all that stuff would happen very quickly, but I wouldn't see my numbers changing. When I went in and changed the period, I wouldn't see those numbers changing. So I drilled down. I thought I had one in here near the top. Whoops, drill down. Duh. Where's my PTD bal? Oh, I forgot to copy this down. Okay. PTD bal. Oh. YTD bal. PTD bal. I thought one of these had some unposted in it. But, oh, well, yeah, they do. I just forgot to make that true. So my first optional is include unposted. And so let's copy that down. Okay, and now when I drill down, one of these anyway. Oh, period 12, yeah. Oh, I thought one of these had some, what did I do wrong here? 12. Huh. So now it's going to include any released but unposted batches. And again, if you're looking at a future period, all of them are going to be released. Well, all the ones that are released are going to be in there, but they're not going to be posted because you haven't gone into that period. And we show you whether something is posted or not, even at the first level. So if for this account, subaccount, in period 12, if you had some posted and some unposted, it's going to break that into 2 rows for you. Again, we're going to need that. Oh, there we go. You guys can interrupt me also to say I did something stupid, like, when I copied that off, I forgot to put the true back in. So there we go. I knew there was one there when I was practicing. And so, yeah, so here we've got, 2 batches that aren't posted out there. And the demo data, the demo database posts everything in summary, which is why we're seeing asterisks here. And if you're posting in detail, then you would see, what kind of batches are these? AP and AR. So if you were posting in detail, you would see, the vendor ID, the customer ID, the vendor name, the customer name, and then you'd see the ref numbers of the documents as well. So your check number, your voucher number, external reference number, if you use that, you would see as well. And then, as I mentioned, your projects and tasks. The last demo I did was for an investment firm, and they were using, they had renamed projects as deal in their system. And so I showed them how when you rename that in Dynamics SL, it's also then renamed in XLstatements. So normally this would say project ID and project, but since we renamed it in the project module, deal, that's now what they're called here. And the notes on accounts, so you can put notes on accounts as well as batches, transaction batches. And so this is, okay, I went in and put this really helpful note in on account 1030, and that's showing up even at this drill down level. Okay, so post in detail, and you're not going to get these asterisks, you're going to get the actual information. And yeah, you're going to have more rows, but if you're using that summarize all but GL, the detail you're going to have in here is very useful detail. Instead of it rolling up all the expense, all the transactions to the same expense account, subaccount for a batch, you're going to see each one, and you're going to see who the vendor was, and what the voucher number was, and if you're using external reference number, I think there's that PO number in AP. You'll see that as well. And if you don't post in detail, you're going to get what we're seeing here in the demo data. And we have to create new demo data where it's not posting in detail, because otherwise you can't see that wonderful functionality of XLstatements. So let's see. Oh yeah, and the expand subaccounts I mentioned. So what that does, and that's useful, again, if you're letting people create subaccounts on the fly, because otherwise, what's it going to use for that subaccount name? It's not going to, it's going to go and create that on the fly as well, and it's not going to be particularly useful. So what this does is it goes and looks at that shared information flex key maintenance table and says, oh, segment 01, that's administration. Second segment 100, that's controller. So reporting unit 01 is administration. Company 100 is controller. Location AA is administration. Group 00 is default. Sales type 00 is default. And region 1 right here is north. So that's what this is doing. And so those investment firms that create these on the fly and have essentially meaningless subaccount names, this is giving them the information they really want to see. And that's, again, coming from that flex key maintenance table. And turning that option on, that will slow your drill downs down a little bit, as you can imagine. So, is it noticeable or not? I mean, if it takes you a second to do a drill down and it takes you 1.01 seconds with that turned on, you're not going to notice that. But that's where that is coming from. So let's see, what else did I say I was going to talk about? Oh yeah, payroll setup. Well, so GL setup. This is what I was talking about. So here's your retention, how many periods to go back. Here's the part I was talking about, automatic reversing. So you turn this on, generate releasing, and then when you look at a future period, you'll be able to see those future period you haven't closed into yet. The fiscal info in version 3, this is the information that it's going to remember going back in time. And I think that's about it in here. And then your other like AP setup. This is going to have retention. Here's where the GL posting option, and this is where you want to set it to detail. So this demo data was set to summary, and I went and changed this to detail. But that's not going to change any history. That's only going to be going forward as you release batches. Now it's going to release them into GL with the detail in the GL. And then here's your retention over here. Okay, and then AR is similar. I think they put the they put the post and summary in a different place. Yeah, so it's in your GL options over here, and then here's your retention again for that. And where is it? What it's going to put in your description, I mentioned and didn't show you on AP. Where is it in here? Here it is. There are different places on these screens, but this is where I'm suggesting make it user entered, and then have your data entry people put something useful in there, because again, this is the default, and you've already got that in Excel statements. It's already there, and it's not glommed together in one column as well. So I definitely recommend doing this, and then those are then going to be blank on your entry screens, and have your data entry people, this is AR, have them type something in like, what did the customer buy? Put that on that line. And then you're going to see that in your drill down sheets. And again, that's in AP as well. And then payroll I wanted to show you. So payroll setup. And this is the one that has this. So post in detail, and then also send the employee ID to GL. And this is unchecked by default, so that's not going to get up there where anybody can see it. But with Excel statements, I suggest turning that on so that those people that you want to be able to see that at the GL level, they will be able to see it. Okay, so anything else that I need to mention? Any questions about any of this? Any questions about anything to do with Excel statements?
Jonathan, I do have a question.
Cool.
This is Stacy.
Okay. Okay.
I did get the budget sheets to work yesterday. By doing your suggestions, I closed everything and I didn't hide the 0 rows, and so it works.
Cool.
But so then if I don't hide the 0 rows, do I have to go into each worksheet then to hide them afterwards?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I mean, you could leave them on when generating, but I think there are two issues with that. One is it's going to make generating those sheets take a lot longer, and number two, I think you were seeing where the hidden rows weren't necessarily correct as well, right?
Right. Right.
And so there may be some lag there that it doesn't pick up on. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think I tested it with that turned on, and I think we probably should. And maybe what we should do is automatically turn it off when it generates them, and turn them, if they were on, have them turn on again. So let me put that down. Maybe that can make it into version 3, but as an enhancement for it to automatically do what you're talking about. That's what we try. We try to make things as easy as possible for you. So let's see if we can. If I can't get that into version 3, it'll be on the list, and it'll be in like version 3.5.
Great, thank you.
With that, okay. And maybe we'll also put something on there whether it should bring notes across, because you had a ton of notes on there, and that was causing performance issues as well. And those notes were all generated by the budget upload because of the way you did it. But maybe we can also have a checkbox for telling it whether to include notes or not. I don't know if we can do that, actually. I don't think we can, because Excel does that automatically, and I don't think we can tell it not to do that. But I'll put it on the list and let the techies figure out if that's possible or not. Cool.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So are all of your settings, did you understand what I was talking about with all of these, and how that makes a difference in Excel statements?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, okay. And, something that some people don't realize is once you have Excel statements, a lot of these reports down here, you're never going to use again. So So even though some of those settings, aren't going to make any difference to the reports that you have in the GL module, if you think about it, there's no reason to use these reports anymore. XLstatements is a much better trial balance, much better detailed GL because you can drill down right from where you are. And some of these other, GL transactions, all of those, using XLstatements for any of these, and these aren't like your balance sheet and your income statement that you're doing for your management, but these are reports that you use internally. These are you're much better off using an Excel statement report for here. And you can also ask your Dynamics SL partner consultant to put an Excel report right on your menu in here too. So if you're so used to, I'm going to get my trial balance by clicking here, you can have them put the Excel statements report in here, and when you click on it, it's going to go and open that Excel workbook for you. So I don't really tend to think of that because, I'm more starting in Excel than I am starting in Dynamics SL. But that's something that I know a lot of consultants have done for their clients. It just stuck those on the menu, and then when you click on it, it doesn't open a Dynamics SL report. It opens up your spreadsheet in Excel for you. Any other questions? Okay. So we actually went over an hour. So thanks for sticking it out, and maybe I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.